Saving my second marriage! Yeah, I think there are 100 ways to find out if your spouse is cheating or about to cheat. The most obvious way is to walk into your bedroom and catch some asshole making love to her. My suspicions about Holly's possible infidelity arose in a less obvious way. Saturday was unusually cold. One of my chores was to put winter tires on Holly's Escape. I smiled as I got into her car. The heated driver's seat was on 3. I turned it off before a trip to the local tire shop and waited for them to change the tires. When I got home, Holly was dressed and waiting for me. "Greg, I need to go to the mall. Do you need anything?" Some men might get worried when they hear those words, because it means credit cards are about to take a serious hit. But Holly makes her own money, never overspends, and best of all, it meant I could relax in front of the TV and watch Saturday night football. Holly didn't let the relaxation go. Try not to spend all day in front of the TV. The kids need some father time. "Okay, sweetheart." 3 hours later, Holly returned to the house with one bag from Nordstrom's. Not bad for 3 hours, I thought to myself. Then I remembered something. "Baby, I left my sunglasses in your car." "You forgot them. I put them in the console." I walked over to her car to get my sunglasses. As I reached out to get them, I couldn't help but notice that the seat heaters on her side were back to 3. But why was it 2 on the passenger side? Back in the house, I found Holly in the kitchen. "Did you go shopping with anyone today?" Holly made a strange face and waited a second before answering. "No. Why do you ask?" "Damn! She must have just lied to me." "No reason. Just thought you'd been gone for a while and assumed you'd had lunch with someone." Holly turned away, pretending to do something at the sink as she answered. "No, I was all alone." The passenger side heater set to 2 was the catalyst for my suspicions. I told Holly I was going down to my basement to cross a few items off her urgent to-do list. The silence in my basement gave me time to think. It took a half hour of solitude and reflection to realize that lately all the signs are there. Coming home from work and not sharing details of his day, forgetfulness related to our home and family, harshness towards me over the smallest things. Yes, the signs were there. How did I recognize the signs of a cheating spouse? Because I had experienced it before. My first marriage broke up because of infidelity. But not my wife. I was the cheater. I was the one who came home late or worked weekends. I was the one who forgot to bring home groceries from the list Carol, my first wife, gave me in the morning. I was the one who placed a lot of importance on little things and got into arguments over them. My affair with a co-worker was going on its 4th month when Carol found out about it. The affair began in one of the most common ways. A little flirting, friendly lunches with general discussions about our partners and their shortcomings. It wasn't long before the friendship grew into intimacy. Carol trusted me and would never have suspected anything if my cheating friend's husband hadn't told Carol by showing her the pictures his private investigator had taken of us. Carol was devastated, saying she couldn't believe someone could betray her trust in such a way. Despite my vow of fidelity for the rest of our lives, she filed for divorce. "Why should I believe you? 2 years ago, you swore to leave everyone else behind. Look how that turned out." 3 months later, I was single again. The thing is, I really loved Carol. My affair was a stupid macho nonsense that led me to the abyss. A beautiful woman wanted me, and I gave myself to her to stroke my ego. I deluded myself that it was just friendship, that what I shared with the other woman wouldn't affect my relationship with Carol. In other words, I was a dumbass like millions of other dumb cheaters. A year after my divorce, I moved to the other side of the country, from Atlanta to Seattle. 2 years later, I met Holly, courted her, and married her. I told her about my first marriage, but I didn't admit to adultery. Just said that my first wife couldn't accept my, then, immaturity. Not really a lie, just not the whole truth. Why arouse suspicion? I would learn my lesson and never cheat again. Holly and I were married for 6 years. We had 2 beautiful children when temptation struck again. My job required me to attend training every 6 months. 20 operatives met for 3 days at our Dallas headquarters twice a year. Each session was attended by mostly the same 20 people, and eventually we bonded. Friendships developed, and there were even hints of a couple romances. One of our group was a woman from the Cleveland office. Karen Bates was a beautiful single woman in her 30s who seemed to enjoy my company. We talked during breaks and lunches. One evening, it was probably my 4th class in Dallas, she asked if I would join some of them for dinner. It was a small group of 7 people. What harm could come of that? It was a fun group. After dinner, we ended up at the bar where there was a dance floor and a band playing. I danced with Karen and 2 other women in the band. About a few hours later, I looked at my watch. It was midnight in Dallas and 10 o'clock in Seattle. I hopped out of the bar without saying goodbye to anyone. Back at the hotel, I called Holly from my cell phone. A sleepy Holly answered after the 2nd ring. "Holly, it's Greg. Did I wake you up?" "It's okay, babe. Just glad you called. I'm sorry it's so late. I went out to dinner and had a few drinks with the others. I wanted to call to tell you I love you. I'm walking back to the hotel now. Should I call you when I get to my room?" "No, baby, I'm just happy to hear your voice. How was your day?" "Long, too long. I leave tomorrow at 3 East. I'll land at Seattle Airport at 6:30 and be home for a late dinner. I miss you." "I miss you too. So do the kids. Fly safe. I can't wait to see you." As much as I wanted to stay on the phone, I didn't want to keep Holly. She was holding down the fort at home, taking care of the kids and going to work. That can tire a person out, and I wanted her rested by the time I got home tomorrow. We hung up, exchanging I love yous with each other as soon as I entered the hotel. I opened the door to my hotel room, sat on the bed, and collapsed. God, that was close. One more drink and one more dance with Karen, and we probably would have been making love right now. One thing that saved me was that I suddenly realized all the warning bells from the affair that had ruined my first marriage. That night I vowed that I would not ruin my marriage to Holly like I had with Carol. For the next 4 years, I was able to keep my promise. I avoided Karen Bates and the few other temptations I encountered. With a renewed sense of direction, I climbed the stairs and entered our kitchen. Our 2 children, Sal and Barb, were sitting at the kitchen table chatting with their mother as she prepared dinner. It was worth fighting for, but I needed to know how far Holly had gotten. Had she already crossed the line in the sand? Was she in love with this guy? Where was the boundary? I felt Holly's eyes on me as I walked into the room and pulled a beer out of the fridge. I sat down between the kids and joined the conversation. Holly looked at the 3 of us and smiled. In that moment, I realized she loved me. So why the hell would she put our family in danger? Or was I being hasty? I tried my best to appear normal and clueless throughout the weekend. We even made love on Sunday morning before going to Sunday service. On Monday morning, I asked my boss for some free time to take care of some personal business. He was kind enough to grant it to me without too much questioning. I made a few calls and set up an appointment with an investigator. Monday afternoon, I was sitting in the reception area of Sullivan Investigations, waiting to meet with Jake Sullivan. I entered his office when the receptionist announced me. Jake was a large man who reminded me of a TV show my dad used to watch when I was a kid. My dad had a full set of videotapes starring a full actor with a mustache. What was his name? Frank Conrad or something? Jake saw the look on my face, my blank stare, and laughed. It was Frank Cannon starring William Conrad. That's what you're trying to remember, right? I can't read minds. I often get the same questioning look. My wife says I should shave off my mustache, but it's more fun this way. Jake and I exchanged a few more pleasantries and got down to business. If what you told me is true, it shouldn't take more than a week. We'll do a little surveillance with a team of 2. Gather everything you need to make some decisions. It shouldn't be more than 10 grand. If you agree, Sheila needs to sign off on it, and I'll have 2 operatives on it by Wednesday. $10,000 sounded steep, but, all things considered, probably cheap in the long run. I agreed, shook Jake's hand, and signed the contract at his secretary's desk. Friday night, I returned to Sullivan's investigative office holding my breath. Greg, I had good news and bad news. Shit! The good news is your wife hasn't gotten in bed with that asshole yet. By the way, that asshole's name is Derek Turner. Derek Turner is Holly's boss. I've met him 3 or 4 times at Holly's work events. I never thought highly of the guy, and I had a feeling he thought even less of me. Always talked to me in a condescending way. I had to admit he was a handsome man, about our age, and kept himself in shape. As that flashed through my mind, I noticed Jake watching me, waiting. Holy shit, this guy was in the right business. Shrewd, waiting until I was ready to hear the next part. I nodded my head and he continued. The bad news was that she might be planning on hooking up with him soon. He asked her to join him at an out-of-town work-related conference in 3 weeks. She hasn't made a commitment, but is definitely on the verge. 2 of my operatives followed them both on Wednesday and Thursday. One sat next to them on Wednesday at the diner. The other followed on Thursday. Neither operative was spotted, I can assure you. There were no outward signs of affection on either day. No handshakes, kisses, anything physical, and we were able to record conversations on both days. The operatives carry special bags with parabolic microphones. I'll give you both tapes so you can listen for yourself. There's some background noise. You may have to listen a few times to get used to it and hear everything that was said. I borrowed the tapes, actually 2 CDs, from Jake and treated them like they were poison. There's more to it than that. Based on what we heard on Wednesday, I followed Turner after work, Wednesday and Thursday nights. On Wednesday, he headed straight to his house, and on Thursday, he left work and met up with another man at the Metropolitan Grill bar. They didn't seem to care that they were in a public place. I couldn't hear the entire conversation, but I caught enough to realize that your wife is not their first target. Given what I heard, I confirmed this morning that the other man is James Young. Turner reports to Young. Looks like one of the previous victims was Karen Johnson. Your wife is the replacement for this Ms. Johnson. Young asked Turner how the seduction went and gave him a hard time when Turner told him she resisted. Turner said he felt he would succeed once she went with him on this business trip. He thought that a little alcohol and dancing would overcome her reticence. He even confirmed something we have on one of the lunch break tapes, that Turner was tempting your wife with the possibility of a promotion in the future if she participated in the program. Jake waited a few more seconds while I digested all of this. He offered me a cup of coffee from the coffee pot on his desk. I declined, already too flustered. Jake continued. I can't stand assholes like that. I wrote my notes right after their conversation. The conversation took place in a public place and there's no expectation of privacy. My notes could be used in a civil suit against those 2 and company. If you need me to, I'll testify on the trial transcript and in court. I'll charge you less than usual just to nail these assholes. The costs to date are almost half of my original estimate. If you need to have your wife followed this weekend, that will probably eat up the rest of your deposit. I only thought about it for a second. No, I'll listen to the tapes, but if what you told me is all that's happened so far, maybe we can get past this. I'll talk to her tomorrow. There's no point in dragging it out. Unless she surprises me. She'll agree to counseling, and that should help. I need to think about the lawsuit. Right now, I'm inclined to agree that those 2 assholes should get hurt. Jake shook my hand. Good luck. Let me know if you need anything else. We'll settle up next week, just in case. I went home early and listened to some CDs on my computer. Derek Turner spent most of both lunches trying to seduce Holly. He spent some time trying to convince Holly that I must have been cheating on her when I attended training in Dallas. I was pleased to hear Holly defend me when Turner spoke ill of me. He tried to convince her that it was in her best interest to go to the next conference with him. It would be good for her career. He was due for a promotion soon, and Holly had a great chance of getting his job when that happened. Turner spent time praising Holly's looks, intelligence, and abilities. When he said it would be great to meet her in a more private setting, somewhere away from the daily grind, and find out if their feelings for each other were more than just friendship, Holly interrupted him, saying it was time to head back to the office. That was the end of the recording, made on Thursday. I sensed Holly was resisting but giving in to temptation. The attraction was understandable. I've been like this before and I know it happens. Had someone intervened before my affair, my first marriage might have survived. It was time to intervene to save my second marriage. I called Holly's parents to ask if they could watch the kids that weekend. Holly's mom was excited about the opportunity. I picked up Sal and Barb from school, drove home with them to pack their bags, and took them to their grandparents' house to be pampered for 2 days. Holly called me at 5 to ask if she could come home a little later and have a drink with a few of her co-workers. She was stunned when I told her, "No, come straight home. There's something we need to talk about now." "Can it wait?" "Not if you want to be married to me after this weekend." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about a divorce if you're not home in the next half hour." "Greg, why are you talking about divorce? What's going on?" "Holly, come home. I'm not going to discuss this over the phone." I hung up. 26 minutes later, Holly walked through the door. She looked like she'd been crying. "Greg, what about the divorce? Where are Sal and Barbara?" "They're at your parents'. Now tell me about your affair with Derek Turner." I don't think I could have surprised Holly more by punching her in the nose. The effect was pretty much the same. Her eyes widened and she stammered before she said the words. "I never cheated on you." I took a chance and exposed her bluff. "There are other kinds of cheating. Just because you may not have slept with him yet doesn't mean you haven't cheated. Now tell me about last Saturday night." Holly froze. "We didn't do anything, just talked. I swear to you." "Why Saturday night? Don't you two talk often enough at work and during meals together? Was I being followed?" "You can't change the subject. Tell me about your Saturday meeting." "I picked up Derek at his apartment. We went shopping and had lunch. I dropped him off at his place. He invited me in, but I said no and went home. No kissing, no hugging, no touching or stroking. He tried to kiss me when he got out of the car. I turned my head and he kissed my cheek. I swear that was it." "So, he went shopping with you. What did you buy?" Now Holly looked scared. "A dress and something else. Stay here." I ran upstairs and looked in her bedroom closet. The Nordstrom bag was half hidden behind her hanging pantsuits. Inside the bag was a little black dress, a pair of heeled shoes, and worst of all, snow-white silk underwear. I walked downstairs, gritting my teeth. "What was that for?" Holly covered her face with her hands. She'd been crying since I left the room. "Derek made me buy a dress and heels in case he convinced me to go to the conference with him next month. If I don't go to the conference, they're for when you ask me out." "And the underwear?" Holly put her head in her hands again and sobbed. "I'm sorry. He bought me these." "What were you going to do?" "I don't know, but I swear I didn't do anything to him. Nothing physical, but—" I couldn't finish. "Are you going to divorce me?" "That depends. Do you want to stay married to me? Are you ready to end this shit with Turner?" "Yes, I want to be your wife. I never doubted that, and neither should you. And yes, I never want to be alone with Derek again." Holly got up from her chair and walked over to me. She sat on my lap and rested her head on my chest. "I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me." I thought about throwing her off my lap, but I couldn't. "I don't hate you, but that will change if you destroy our family." Holly and I spent that night and all of Saturday discussing how we were going to move on with our lives. If I had any doubts about Holly's love for me and our children, those doubts were dispelled by the time we picked up the kids Sunday morning. We decided to see a marriage counselor together. Holly needed to reconcile her love of family with the temptation to have an affair. Although it became obvious that Derek Turner was an experienced seducer of women. For example, Holly said that on Monday morning, Turner asked if I had seen her shopping from Nordstrom. When she replied that I hadn't looked in the bag, he turned it into another insult. "See, your husband doesn't care about you. He probably has a girlfriend on the side." I told Holly that the only reason I hadn't asked about her purchase was because I was beginning to suspect something, and I needed time to think about it without losing my temper. I decided to tell Holly why my first marriage fell apart and how close I was to screwing up the second time. I thought a counselor could help me tell Holly the truth in a way that wouldn't destroy my family. Honestly, our relationship could use a boost, and the right counselor could help us with that. We also decided to contact Holly's HR department and file a formal complaint against Turner. Although Holly was outraged after reading Jake Sullivan's notes about Turner and Young's conversation, everyone in the office wondered what happened to Karen Johnson. She quit and left without a word to anyone. Holly resisted until we met with our counselor on Tuesday. She convinced Holly that this was the right action. And we returned the dress, shoes, and underwear to Nordstrom. As much as I wanted to take Holly outside in the dress or take the lingerie off her lovely body, I couldn't look at them because Turner chose them. It's been a year since that weekend. Both Derek Turner and James Young were fired for cause based on Holly's complaint, and after the HR director listened to the tapes, read Jake Sullivan's notes, and had a follow-up conversation with Jake. Neither of them received a severance package. They were just quickly shoved out the door. Holly heard that they threatened lawsuits, but backed off after being threatened with countersuits. Speaking of lawsuits, in a letter from our attorney, Holly received a check for a nice sum from the company, and nothing more was said after she signed the application. We might have been tempted to press the issue, but Holly's company did the right thing. They got rid of the bad guys and settled with her quickly. The counselor really helped us with our problems. Holly was surprised when she heard the real reason my first marriage failed. She was hurt when, during our first session, I told her how close I was to cheating on her. The reason I decided to come clean was simple. Holly needed to know that she wasn't the only one who could be tempted. Our marriage would be stronger if she didn't carry the weight of guilt. After all, neither of us had crossed a physical line, which made the emotional boundaries we crossed still destructive, but not unforgivable. I truly believe that Holly and I are happier now than we were in our first year of marriage. Both kids are doing great. It's probably easier to raise children when parenting is done by two adults who love each other. Several important lessons have been learned. First, don't use another person to replace the emotional support you should be getting from your spouse, especially when the other person has a reason to erect barriers between you and your spouse. This may start with friendly dinners, but often ends up in bed. Second, if you are doing something you are embarrassed to tell your spouse about, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Third, communication. Are you having problems with your spouse? Let him or her know about it. I'm not being naive. There are marriages that communication and information sharing won't save, but if your marriage is worth saving, make time to communicate. Well, either way, that's my 2 cents, and they're worth every penny. The end!